Number 3, Tim Macindoe.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. What progress has the government made in delivering on its economic objectives for 2014?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, the government has made good progress in its economic objectives for 2014. However, there is much more to be done in a world facing significant challenges from low growth rates, particularly in Europe and Japan, too much debt and lower commodity prices. New Zealand is relatively well placed. Our economy grew by 3.9% in the year June 2014, one of the highest growth rates in the developed world. Updated GDP figures will be released next week and they are expected to confirm this solid growth continuing. This is delivering benefits to hard-working Kiwis. Average wages have increased by around $3,000 in the past 2 years to nearly $55,700 and are forecast to grow. The average ordinary time weekly wage is forecast to grow to $62,300 by 2018 from $55,700 today.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Tim Macindoe.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister, how are the benefits of the government's economic program being reflected in the labour market, and how do average wage increases compare with the cost of living changes?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, well, in the past year alone, 72,000 jobs were created across New Zealand, and Treasury forecasts more than 150,000 further jobs over the next 4 years. Back in Budget 2011, Treasury predicted 171,000 new jobs up to June 2015. So far, we're 12,000 new jobs ahead of that prediction made in 2011. These new jobs are bringing down unemployment, which has fallen to 5.4% and should continue to fall to under 5%. Cost of living increases for New Zealand families have been low. Average hourly earnings increased by 2.3% in the last year, compared with inflation of 1%.
Further supplementary.
Supplementary question, Tim Macindoe.
Thank you, sir. How is the government's economic program helping to keep interest rates lower for longer?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, the government has some influence on interest rates and we're using that influence where we can. In the first place, we are limiting our operating allowance, that is our additional discretionary spending in our budgets, to an average of $1.5 billion over the next 3 years, rather than having a spend up because the economy is better. Secondly, we're focusing strongly on increasing the supply of housing to housing markets across New Zealand so that we can help to moderate the housing cycle and therefore moderate the inflation cycle. We seem to be doing a lot better as a country than in 2008, where floating mortgage rates reached 11%, a bit less than twice what they are today.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
What effect will continuing Russian sanctions that have displaced 3 billion litres of European milk have upon Treasury projections for a return to surplus in 2015, 2016 and 2017?
Honourable Bill English.
Oh, well, Mr Speaker, I think as the member knows, it'll probably have a negative impact. We need to keep perspective, though. While the dairy industry is a large, successful industry, it represents about 7% of our GDP, and it is under pressure. The other 93%, though, is in pretty good shape, and that will offset some of those negative effects.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Does he agree with the Prime Minister that New Zealand dairy exporters taking advantage of the gap left by other nations' trade sanctions on Russia is a, to quote the Prime Minister, terrible look, end of quotes? If so, why?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, yes, because the Prime Minister has remarkable insight and intuition at all times.
Can someone... Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Can I take a moment to have a laugh?
No, the member can take a moment to ask a supplementary question.
Will he be so lofty and principled if in 2 years' time we have a banking crisis precipitated by low returns coming to the New Zealand dairy industry as it is right now and getting worse? If so, why?
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, you know, a lot of the things that you worry about in this world just don't quite happen as badly as you think. I think the dairy industry is a pretty resilient industry. The New Zealand economy is a pretty resilient economy. And yes, there may be some tougher times ahead, but while that might bother the member, we are confident New Zealand can find their way through even a period of lower dairy prices.
Question number 4, Grant Robertson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.